found Marcus dead in his plow truck 2 miles deep in the forest. Heart attack, they said, but they couldn't explain why he'd driven off-road into the trees or why there were wet, barefoot prints on his passenger seat. Small prints leading toward the woods. I knew why. Because 3 months earlier I'd met her too. I used to drive a snowplow for the county, night shift, covering rural roads in upstate New York. It was solitary work, which suited me fine. Just me, the truck, and miles of empty highway covered in snow. Most nights were routine. Clear the roads, salt the bridges, make sure the morning commuters had a safe drive. But there was one road I hated, Route 46, a narrow 2-lane highway that cut through dense forest for about 15 miles. No houses, no gas stations, nothing but trees and darkness pressing in from both sides. The tree line came right up to the shoulder, so close that branches sometimes scraped the side of my truck when the wind picked up. The locals called it the Lost Mile, even though it was much longer than that. People reported seeing things on that road, figures standing in the tree line, vehicles that appeared in your rearview mirror and then vanished. The usual rural highway ghost stories. I didn't believe any of it. I'd driven that road hundreds of times without incident, until the night I met her. It was late January, around 2 a.m., in the dead of winter when the cold is so intense it hurts to breathe. The temperature had dropped to -15. I was making my final pass down, Route 46, already thinking about getting home, when I saw someone standing in the middle of the road. A woman, maybe in her 20s, wearing only a thin white dress that looked like a nightgown. No coat, no shoes, no hat or gloves, just standing there in the middle of a blizzard, illuminated by my headlights. I slammed on the brakes. The truck skidded on the ice, and I managed to stop about 20 feet from her. She didn't move, didn't flinch, just stood there, staring directly at me through the windshield. Snow accumulated on her shoulders and in her long, dark hair, but she didn't shiver, didn't react to the cold at all, just stood perfectly still like a statue. I grabbed my radio. "Dispatch, this is PLOW 7. I've got a situation on Route 46, mile marker 12. There's a woman standing in the road. She looks hypothermic. Static. No response." I tried again. Nothing but white noise. I opened my door, immediately hit by the brutal cold. Protocol said to stay in the vehicle, but this woman was going to freeze to death. "Ma'am," I called out, "are you okay? Do you need help?" She tilted her head slightly. "Can you take me home?" Her voice was soft, barely audible over the wind. But somehow I heard every word clearly. "Of course," I said. "But first we need to get you warmed up. Come sit in the truck." She didn't move. "I just want to go home." "Where's home?" I asked, approaching slowly. She pointed into the woods. "There." I looked. Just darkness and endless rows of pine trees. "There's nothing out there. Let me—" "Please," she interrupted. "I've been trying to get home for so long." Something about her voice made my skin crawl. Desperate, yes, but also wrong somehow. Flat, emotionless beneath the surface. "How long have you been out here?" I asked. "I don't remember." I was about 10 feet from her now, close enough to see details. Her dress wasn't just thin, it was old. Decades old. The kind of style from the 1950s. And her skin was too pale, almost blue-white, the color of someone who'd been dead for hours. "Ma'am, I really think..." She smiled. "You can see me." I stopped walking. "What?" "You can see me," she repeated, her smile widening. "The others couldn't. They drove right through me, dozens of them, hundreds maybe, but you stopped." Ice filled my veins. "Through you?" She took a step toward me, and I noticed her bare feet left no prints in the snow. "I've been waiting for someone who could see me, someone who could help me get home. And here you are." I backed up. I can call someone, an ambulance." "I don't need an ambulance," she said, taking another step. "I need you to take me home, into the woods. That's where I need to go." Every instinct screamed to get back in the truck, but I couldn't move fast enough. "I died here," she said calmly. 53 years ago, car accident. I was thrown from the vehicle, landed in the snow. No one found me for 3 days. She was 5 feet away now. Her eyes were wrong, too light, almost colorless. And I've been trying to find my way home ever since. But I can't get there alone. If someone living takes me, walks with me, I can finally go home. "Take you where?" I whispered. She pointed into the woods. "Just a little walk, that's all. You'll help me, won't you?" I finally found my voice. "No." Her smile vanished. "No? I'm sorry about what happened to you, but I can't help you." Her expression changed. The desperate look disappeared, replaced by something cold and furious. "Then you're no use to me," she hissed. She lunged. I ran back to the truck, my boots slipping on the ice. I yanked the door open and threw myself inside. I slammed it shut and locked it just as she reached the vehicle. She pounded on the driver's side window. "Let me in. You have to help me. You have to take me home." Cracks started to form in the safety glass, spreading like spider webs. I threw the truck into reverse and floored it. Through the rear view mirror, I watched her standing in the road, illuminated by my tail lights, screaming. Her mouth was open, impossibly wide. I didn't stop backing up until I was a quarter mile away. Then I turned the truck around and got the hell off of Route 46. I called dispatch as soon as I got signal. They sent a patrol car. They didn't find anyone, no footprints, no signs of any person being there. I quit the next day, told my supervisor it was family reasons. But 3 months later, I heard about Marcus, another snowplow driver. They found him dead in his truck on Route 46. Heart attack, the official report said. But his truck was found 2 miles into the woods, off-road, driven between trees like he'd deliberately steered into the forest. And on the passenger seat, there were wet footprints, barefoot, small, leading from the passenger door toward the deeper woods. They searched the area, found nothing. I knew what had happened. Marcus had seen her too, and unlike me, he'd said yes. I don't drive at night anymore. And I never take Route 46, not ever. Because sometimes, when I'm lying in bed late at night, I hear tapping on my window, light, patient, 3 soft taps, and a soft voice asking, "Will you take me home now?" I never open the curtains to look. I just turn on every light in my apartment, and I pray she doesn't figure out how to open doors. My uncle owned a cabin on Lake Superior in northern Minnesota. Every February, he'd invite me up for a weekend of ice fishing. I looked forward to it every year, the isolation, the silence, the simple pleasure of sitting in a heated ice shanty, waiting for something to bite. It was our tradition, something we'd been doing since I was a teenager. Last February was different. I drove up on a Friday afternoon, the highway cutting through endless forests of snow-covered pines. The lake was completely frozen, with at least 2 feet of solid ice according to the local reports. Dozens of ice shanties dotted the white expanse, small, colorful shelters scattered across the frozen surface like a temporary village. Some were fancy setups with generators and satellite dishes. Others were simple plywood boxes. My uncle's cabin was empty when I arrived. There was a note on the kitchen table. "Emergency at the hospital. Dad fell. We'll be back Sunday. Shanti is already set up. Coordinates in the usual spot. Stay warm. Mike." I found the GPS coordinates written on a piece of paper by the coffee maker. My uncle always set up his shanty in the same general area, about a mile from shore in a spot he swore had the best fishing. He'd been coming to this lake for 30 years and knew every underwater structure, every drop-off, every place the walleye liked to hide. I loaded my gear into the sled fishing rod, tackle box, thermos of coffee, sandwiches, extra propane, and bundled up in my warmest clothes. I headed out onto the ice around 4 p.m. The sun was already starting to set, painting the snow in shades of orange and pink. Winter this far north, you only get about 8 hours of daylight in February. The ice was solid beneath my feet, making that reassuring sound that tells you it's safe to walk on. Every step produced a dull thud, and occasionally I'd hear a deep groan from somewhere beneath me, the ice shifting and settling under its own massive weight. It's normal. The lake is alive under there, constantly moving, expanding, and contracting with temperature changes. And found my uncle's shanty exactly where the coordinates said it would be. A small red structure, maybe 6 feet by 6 feet, with a propane heater, a folding chair, and a hole already drilled in the ice. He'd even left the heater and some supplies inside. I set up inside, got the heater going until the small space was warm and comfortable, and dropped my line into the black water below. The hole was maybe 18 inches in diameter, and when I shined my flashlight down, I couldn't see the bottom. Just endless dark water disappearing into nothing. Lake Superior is deep over 1,000 feet in some places. I settled in with a thermos of coffee and a book, enjoying the solitude. Peaceful, quiet, exactly what I needed after a stressful month at work. Around 6 p.m., when it was fully dark outside, I caught my first fish. A nice walleye, maybe 3 pounds, exactly what we'd come here for. I was reeling it up, already thinking about how I'd cook it for dinner, when I noticed something strange. There were scratches on the fish, long, deep gouges running along its side, like something had raked claws across its scales. Not from a predator attack, these looked deliberate, methodical, like something with claws had grabbed it and then let go. I brushed it off. Fish get injured all the time down there. Could have been anything. I tossed it in the cooler and cast my line again. 30 minutes later, I felt another tug. This one was heavier, stronger. It fought harder than any fish I'd ever caught on this lake. It took me almost 5 minutes to reel it in, my arms burning from the effort, and when it finally broke the surface, I saw why. It wasn't a fish. It was a hand. A human hand, pale and waterlogged, fingers curled like it was still trying to hold something. The skin was wrinkled and loose, the nails black. I screamed and dropped my rod. The hand slipped back into the water and disappeared into the darkness below. I sat there, hyperventilating, staring at the black hole in the ice, my heart pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears. My brain was trying to process what I'd just seen and trying to find a rational explanation. Had to be a glove or some kind of debris, maybe a mannequin hand from some prank. Not a real hand, couldn't be a hand, but I knew what I'd seen. The texture of the skin, the way the fingers moved. I grabbed my phone to call someone, anyone, the police, my uncle, somebody who could tell me I was crazy. But there was no signal. Never is out on the ice, too far from any cell tower. I'd have to go back to the cabin to use the landline. I was packing up my gear with shaking hands when I heard it, knocking. 3 slow, deliberate knocks coming from below the ice. I froze, every muscle in my body tensing. The knocking came again. Tap, tap, tap. Directly beneath the shanty, right under where I was standing. Then I heard the voice. "Let me in." It was muffled, distorted by the water and ice, but unmistakably human. A woman's voice, Please, let me in. It's so cold down here." I backed away from the hole, my hands shaking so badly I could barely hold my flashlight. The voice continued, more insistent now. "I've been down here so long, please. Just pull me up. Help me. I'm so cold, so tired." Every instinct told me to run, to get out of that shanty and never look back. But there was a part of me, the part that wanted to believe I hadn't just lost my mind, the part that still believed in helping people, that considered it. What if someone had fallen through the ice? What if they were trapped under there, clinging to the underside of the ice, slowly freezing to death? What if I was their only chance? I approached the hole cautiously, moving slowly, and shined my flashlight down into the dark water. A face stared back at me from just below the surface. Pale, blue-lipped, eyes wide and bloodshot, the pupils dilated until they were almost entirely black. Woman, maybe in her 30s. Her long dark hair floating around her face like she was suspended in water. She smiled when she saw me, her teeth unnaturally white against her blue lips. "There you are," she said, her voice clearer now. "Pull me up. Help me out of here." I stumbled backward, my mind reeling. How are you breathing down there?" Her smile widened, stretching her face in a way that didn't look quite human. "I'm not." The flashlight slipped from my hand and fell into the water with a splash. Darkness swallowed the shanty except for the faint orange glow of the propane heater. I heard splashing, the sound of something pulling itself up through the hole, water sloshing onto the ice floor. I didn't wait to see what emerged. I ran. I burst out of the shanty into the freezing night and ran across the ice toward the distant lights of the shore. I didn't look back, didn't stop. My lungs burned from gulping the frigid air. My legs ached. But I kept running, slipping and sliding on the ice. Behind me, I heard wet footsteps on the ice, slow, steady. The sound of bare feet slapping against the frozen surface, and humming. She was humming some melody I didn't recognize, something old and haunting. I ran for what felt like hours, but was probably only 15 minutes. When I finally reached the shore and collapsed in the snow by the cabin, gasping for air, I turned to look back across the ice. The lake was empty. No footprints in the snow except my own panicked trail. No sign of anyone following me. My uncle's shanty sat alone in the distance, a small red dot in an expanse of white, the propane heater still glowing faintly inside. I drove home that night, didn't even go inside the cabin, didn't stay, didn't wait for my uncle. Just got in my car and drove 6 hours back to Minneapolis, my hands gripping the steering wheel so tight my knuckles were white. He called me the next day, confused about why I'd left so suddenly without explanation. Said he went out to check the shanty Sunday morning and everything was fine. No sign of disturbance. The heater was still running. My gear was still there. But when he pulled in the fishing line I'd left behind, there was something on the hook. A waterlogged photograph, the kind printed on old photo paper that hadn't been used in decades. It showed a woman standing on a frozen lake, wearing 1980s winter clothes, puffy jacket, high-waisted jeans, smiling at the camera. The photo was dated February 1987, written in faded ink on the back. My uncle asked if I knew who she was. I lied and said no, but I recognized her immediately. It was the face I'd seen staring up at me from under the ice. The same dark hair, the same smile. He said she'd drowned in that exact spot 30 years ago. Fell through thin ice during an early season thaw in March. They searched for weeks, but never recovered her body. The lake never gives up its dead, he said. Too deep, too cold. I haven't been ice fishing since. I grew up in northern Maine, where winter isn't just a season, it's a way of life. 6 months of snow, temperatures that regularly did drop below zero, and nights so long you sometimes forget what the sun looks like. The darkness stretches from 4 in the afternoon until nearly 8 the next morning. And in that darkness, the world transforms into something unfamiliar. When I was 12 years old, something happened that made me afraid of winter in a way that has nothing to do with the cold. It started the day after Christmas. We'd gotten almost 2 feet of snow overnight, the kind of heavy, wet snowfall that transforms the landscape completely. My parents were both at work. Mom was a nurse, working a double shift, and Dad was with the county road crew clearing routes. That left me and my younger sister Emma home alone, which wasn't unusual in rural Maine. Emma was 9 years old, obsessed with building snowmen, and had been begging me all morning to go outside. She'd been standing at the back window for an hour, pressing her face against the glass, watching the untouched snow with desperate longing. Every few minutes, she'd turn to me with those big eyes and ask, "Can we go out now, please?" I finally gave in around noon. We bundled up in our heaviest coats, snow pants, boots, thick wool gloves, and scarves. When we pushed through the back door, the cold hit us like a physical force, but Emma didn't care. She let out a whoop of joy and immediately dove into the snow. Our backyard was large, maybe half an acre, and backed up to dense woods. Pine trees mostly, with some birch and maple mixed in. No neighbors for half a mile in any direction. Just our house, a small weathered shed, and an endless expanse of forest. It was beautiful in the daylight, pristine and peaceful. But at night, those woods felt different, darker, like they went on forever. The snow was perfect for building wet and packable, the kind that holds together when you squeeze it. Emma immediately started rolling a massive snowball for the base, throwing her whole body weight into pushing it across the yard. Together, we rolled it until it was almost 3 feet in diameter. The snowman took shape quickly. We spent about an hour on it. It ended up being almost 6 feet tall, taller than me at the time. Emma insisted on using carrots for the nose, stones for the eyes and mouth. She was very particular about which stones we used, holding each one up to the light. For the final touch, she wanted to use an old scarf our grandmother had knitted years ago. It was thick wool, striped in red and green. We didn't have a proper hat, so I ran inside and grabbed my dad's old winter cap. When we finished, Emma stepped back and clapped her mittened hands together. "He's perfect," she said. "He's the best snowman we've ever made." He did look good, almost too good. But there was something about the way the stones were positioned that made it look like he was staring directly at our back door. Not past it, directly at the door, with an intensity that seemed impossible for inanimate objects to possess. I shook off the weird feeling and we headed inside for a hot chocolate. That night I woke up around 2 a.m. No reason, just suddenly awake. My room faced the backyard, and I always kept my curtains open because I liked seeing the snow in the moonlight. It was a clear night, and the full moon made everything outside glow with this eerie blue-white light. I was about to roll over and go back to sleep when I noticed something wrong. The snowman had moved. Not much, but enough that I noticed. When we'd built him, he'd been roughly in the center of the yard, maybe 20 feet from the tree line. Now he was closer to the woods, maybe 10 feet from the trees. I sat up in bed, staring out the window. My heart started beating faster. I told myself I was remembering wrong, that we'd built him closer to the woods than I thought. But I knew our yard. I'd played in it every day for years. I knew exactly where we'd placed him. I watched for about 5 minutes. He didn't move. Just stood there perfectly still, with those stone eyes aimed at the house. Eventually, I convinced myself I was being paranoid and went back to sleep. The next morning, I looked out my window first thing. The snowman was back in the center of the yard, exactly where we'd originally built him. I felt my stomach drop. I couldn't breathe. I stared at that snowman and felt reality tilt, because I knew, absolutely knew, that I hadn't been wrong. I went downstairs and asked Emma if she'd moved the snowman during the night. She was eating cereal at the kitchen table. She looked at me like I was crazy. "Why would I go outside in the middle of the night?" she said. I asked my parents. They hadn't touched it either. My dad seemed annoyed. "I've got enough to worry about without keeping track of your snow sculptures," he said. I told myself it was the wind, or maybe the snow had settled differently. Logical explanations. But that night, I stayed awake watching. I went to bed early and lay there fully dressed under the covers, staring out the window, waiting. After my parents went to bed, the house fell silent. Around 1:30 a.m., I saw it happen. The snowman moved. Not all at once. Slowly. Almost imperceptibly. Like it was taking tiny steps when I wasn't looking directly at it. I'd stare right at it and it would be perfectly still. I'd blink, and when I looked back, it was a little bit closer to the tree line, just inches, but definitely closer. I tried not blinking. But your eyes water, and eventually you have to blink, and that's when it moved. By 2:15 a.m., it was at the edge of the woods. By 2:30 a.m., it was gone. Disappeared into the forest. I sat frozen, my heart hammering. Every rational part of my brain was screaming that this was impossible. But I'd watched it happen. I didn't sleep the rest of the night. The next morning, the snowman was back, right in the center of the yard. But there was one difference. It was facing the house now, looking directly at my bedroom window, and it was closer, maybe 15 feet from the house instead of 20. I told Emma we should knock it down. She refused. She loved that snowman. That night, I locked my bedroom door. I shoved my desk chair under the handle, and I watched. 1:45 a.m. The snowman started moving again, but this time it wasn't heading toward the woods. It was coming toward the house. Step by impossibly slow step, it glided across the snow. Not walking, though in doubt there were no footprints. It just moved. By 2:20 a.m., it was directly outside my window. I couldn't move. I was paralyzed, staring at this thing I'd built, now standing less than 3 feet away, separated from me by only glass. The stone eyes seemed to stare directly at me. And then, I swear this happened. The carved mouth moved. Just a slight upward curve, like it was smiling. I screamed. My dad burst into my room, flipping on the lights. "What's wrong?" I pointed at the window, but the snowman was gone. The yard was empty. My dad checked the yard the next morning. No tracks, no evidence, but the snowman was completely gone. Emma cried for days. I never told her what I'd seen. We moved the following year. My parents never knew the real reason I begged them to leave. I'm 28 now. I live in Florida. I haven't seen snow in 6 years. Because last winter my girlfriend suggested we visit her family in Vermont. Her nephew had built a snowman, and when I arrived I saw it. 6 feet tall, carrot nose, stone eyes, staring at the guest room window. I told my girlfriend I was sick. We went home that night. Some childhood fears you never really outgrow.